all times in every part of the environment. And what I'm most excited about is that it's probably the closest thing to like a real holodeck experience as you'll be able to get. So it makes sense that Roddenberry would be the first to do this kind of film. It's a kind of a whodunit story. I think we have another guest.
What's it about, Greg?
It's about a room that is white.
Go on.
And 6 people wake up in the room, and all that there is a gun, a 6-shooter in the middle of the table, and they're trying to figure out how they got there and why they're there and how they're going to get out.
That sounds mysterious and exciting all at the same time.
Talk about some of the challenges as a director, because when you're shooting 360 degrees, where are you? And who's acting? Who's the camera on? How does it work?
The camera is on everybody. That was the biggest challenge, because usually when you shoot a traditional film, you do your wide shot where everyone gets to do their thing, but then you come in and do individual close-ups. The other actors are off screen, so everybody gets to save their main performance for their close-up. But here, everyone has a close-up the entire time. It's 20 minutes of everybody acting. It's more like a stage play. But also with a stage play, you have the ability to, if you flub a line, the other actors can kind of pick up the slack and improvise. But we had all these cues, like special effects cues and everything, so it had to be dead on. And there were all these parameters in terms of like when they stood up. If they stood up too high, they would break the frame and we couldn't go out of frame, so we had to keep stopping because someone would like move too quickly. It was very, very challenging. And then I was not in the room. The room had to be a closed-off set, full 360. So the crew was outside, and I had a bank of 9 monitors that I had to watch and make sure that every single thing was happening in the right time. Yes.
It's like directing a sporting event.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible at sports, so it was definitely a challenge.
And who are some of the people that were in our film?
We have Breckin Meyer. Everyone know Breckin Meyer?
Anybody? Hey, this gentleman.
You know what, even if I'm going to say names, even if you don't know, just clap really loud, because if you're watching this on YouTube or something, it's hard. But you guys know Breckin Meyer. You know him from Road Trip. Road Trip.
He's on the hit TNT show Franklin and Bash.
He's also that guy right in the front there.
Yeah, that boating gentleman.
Do we have a laser pointer? And we have David Blue. David Blue fan?
Gotta know David Blue. Stargate SGU.
Tamlin Tamita. Joy Love.
Heroes, and also in Glee now.
Yeah. Clap. We have Rachel True, who everyone should know from The Craft. Yeah. Go on. Yeah. And Half Baked for all you stoners out there. Go on, girlfriend. And we have 2 kind of newcomers, I guess. Mylene Starley, who is part of the hit Geek Squad Team Unicorn. If you're just smoking hot chicks that are full-blown nerds, go look them up, Team Unicorn.
She's got to be here somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And last but certainly not least is Tony Janning, star of the hit web series The Legend of Neil. You should go look up Team Unicorn because they're all hot chicks, but Legend of Neil is super duper funny, and Tony gives a brilliant dramatic performance. See, I just twisted it like M. Night Trevor.
Adam.com. You can check that out.
So yeah, so that's pretty much White Room. It was a fun adventure, and it was exciting, and Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, just so you know, I think that one of the most exciting things about White Room was also the different ways that you'll be able to see it, which we haven't talked about before. And I think that that is also what speaks to what makes it Roddenberry in many ways, because from that standpoint, as well as the production itself and the way it was done, it is truly a groundbreaking experience. Greg did the most impressive job by shooting the film actually in 2 different ways. The traditional sort of director's cut, we're calling the director's cut way, which is the first sort of flat as you would see it filmed. But in a singular day, we also did shoot, within this 360-degree environment with this camera that caught everything and allowing people to make no mistakes during every take. And that 360-degree version of this film will be able to be seen in really cool dome theaters which I don't know if you guys have ever been to a dome theater, but there are actually like 700 of them.
Or planetariums.
Yeah, so many of them are planetariums, and this is the first time that you'll be able to go into these dome theaters and not just see sort of, galaxy to the stars or, explore the underwater beneath kind of things. You'll be able to see an actual film in which, some really cool science fiction stuff is happening, but happening all the way around you, 360
So you're all going to have to sign waivers before you go in because of whiplash?
Right, yeah. but it's truly, we just recently saw a test in a 360-degree dome of the movie out there. And this was, in some ways, a work in progress for us. We just felt like this could work. We wanted to push the boundaries and to be immersed in the room that they're in, literally sit in the center of the room where the camera was and watch this film take place and unfold around you is an amazing experience. And we're really excited to bring something that is so immersive and so novel to audiences that they've never been able to see before. In addition to that, you'll be able to see it on the web, which would allow you to play director a little bit, because you'll be able to move your mouse one side or the other and decide which part of the 360-degree, room you're going to see. And lastly, and this is a hope of ours, but as in true Roddenberry spirit, technology has to catch up with us. The iPad and the iPhone are something that we hope to be able to view this on, because if you think about anybody, if you watched, a movie on an iPad and you're sitting there like this, well, the iPads have gyroscopic technology already in them. So we believe we can get it to a point where you're watching the movie and literally able to swivel your body around and see the 360-degree room.
So you're walking through WonderCon and you're like, this thing. I'm gonna pass out.
So, in addition to the fantastic cast, our amazing director, and the experience and challenges that went into White Room, the way you guys are going to be able to experience them and see this story from the different points of view that you're allowed is something we're really, really excited to bring you, and I think speaks very well to what we're trying to do.
And I gotta say, the hardest part is condensing 45 years of Star Trek and 71 years of my father's life and the whole Star Trek phenomenon into an hour and a half. That isn't virtually impossible, that is impossible. We had probably about six solid cuts of this film that went in completely different directions. They had some of the same flavor, but we would go in tangents left and right, and we would show them to people, and they wouldn't really connect that well with some of this. And one that really, people say that when you make a documentary, you gotta make it for yourself. If you're the visionary, you make it for yourself and no one else. That's what a documentary is. I struggled with that and with the compromise of actually having people like it and want to see it. And the documentaries that I had a lot of influence in had a lot of the father-son angle. There was this, and I kind of belittled the statement a bit, but I said, did my daddy love me stuff, which was a very powerful journey for me to really go on, where I talked to people about the relationships with their father and their relationships with my father and the relationship I didn't have. And unfortunately, that didn't play out for a general audience. We took it to CBS, Paramount, Showtime, a number of studios and distributors who all turned it down. Luckily, at that time, we felt we had a film that was probably about 80–85% there. We knew it was sort of missing a thread. But Discovery came around and they said, we see this, we know what you're trying to do. And they came to the table with us and they said, tell us what you want and we'll work with you to make sure that it's put together and done in that way. And we did. We spent about a year with them in a company called New Animal, and they edited the film into what came out. And it is a phenomenal documentary that does a great job, I think, on touching on all aspects. The hardest part, as I said, was really delving deep into any one particular topic. But with the DVD and Blu-ray release and digital release down the road, we hope to have plenty of extras, and I think that can segue into maybe something that we have here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be considered a little bit of an extra. But again, we had probably 200 hours of good footage, 15 minutes, 200 hours of good footage, not B-roll, with fantastic people, amazing interviews. And this will be a sample of what didn't make it in, but what hopefully you'll see one day on the DVD, Blu-ray download.
Okay, yeah, beautiful. Let me see if that goes on.
We only have 15 minutes, Joe.
One time I was...
That's a
Yeah, so that was the extra footage. I hope you guys liked it. This is the endurance segment of the...
That Blu-ray quality is amazing.
also an endurance face.
Hey! Yeah, it's different. So, everyone having a good time so far, probably? It's making its rounds.
Okay.
Oh, that guy in the mask. Does anyone
guys
have
get
any
to see
questions
it?
while we're figuring out our technical
Or I can
difficulties?
tell you
Kind of-
about some of the interesting interviewees.
Did a
that did that.
zigzag.
That would be great.
Okay, because I haven't seen it.
Yes.
So one of the, there were many phases of this, and we tried to find some celebrities. We thought, at one point we should get some celebrities who like Star Trek. So in case, people don't know about this, at least that name factor will make people go like, oh, there's a documentary with who in it? So one of the interesting ones was none other than Dennis Rodman. Alien. We got Dennis Rodman. Yes. It was a very good interview. He actually told us a very powerful story about a young boy, I believe he was mentoring, and how that connected to his love of Star Trek. So that was very interesting. Another unique one was Tammy Faye Mesner, the former Tammy Faye Baker. So again, these strange names are because we wanted to get a diverse group of people to show that people from all walks of life had this commonality. They all believed in this future. And these are two of the most extreme, but...
In the documentary, you also see, interviews from...
Okay, we're good to go.
You'll see interviews from George Lucas. You'll see interviews from Rob Zombie. You'll see interviews
Rob
from all these people, Star Trek fans.
Seth MacFarlane, Will Wheaton.
Yeah. So we got a lot of fantastic people in and out of this thing, and this is an example again of something that didn't quite fit in, but is going to show you how powerful some of the extras are going to be.
And Dennis Rodman and Tammy Faye Baker ended up together.
We all saw that coming.
There were a number of very powerful stories on how Star Trek touched people, and you're about to see one of them that really shocked us.
Woo! It's all happening now.
One time I was at the motion picture hospital, which our industry is blessed to have available to us, and there was a gentleman in a wheelchair sitting in the waiting room, and I told him I worked on Star Trek and was involved with the creation of visual effects. And he said that Star Trek saved his life. He was suffering from multiple sclerosis, and he had gone through a really horrendous period of suffering with the disease, to the point that he was getting ready to end his life. And the night he decided to do it, he had the TV on in his apartment when Star Trek came on. And it was the episode of Next Generation, The Inner Light, directed by Peter Lorreson. And The Inner Light involved the Enterprise coming upon a small alien probe that zapped us, and it zapped one individual, Captain Picard. And so during the course of the episode, Captain Picard lives the life of an alien. And he goes from maturity to old age, and we see the dramas that revolve around that person's life. And then he ultimately discovers that there's something going wrong with the planet, the sun's going over, and it's going to experience some cataclysm which will wipe out all life on their planet, and everybody who had ever lived will be lost to memory. This person, when he saw the teaser, got hooked and said, well, I'll wait to kill myself until Star Trek's over. So he watched the show, and by the time the show was over, he realized that all life had value, even his. And he went into remission, went on to get married and have children, and became a professional musician.
supervisor from Star Trek.
So I think we're going to open it up to questions because normally we have a fair amount of them and we have a bit of time. Which means I'm sure none of you have any. I'll sit here in silence. But if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand.
Wait, I want to ask a question, a favor. My objective is, my father in the 60s went around to 70s, I guess, went around to conventions and bring his 16mm projector and bring a copy of The Cage and the blooper reels and show them to try to get people hooked on Star Trek. What I hope to do over the next year and a half, if not longer, is I'd love to bring Trek Nation to conventions, if anyone has any affiliation or goes to them or can put a good word in, assuming you've seen it and like it, of course. I would love to hear from you and get your help on that, because I really want as many people in the world to see this. I actually don't care if you buy the DVD, I just want people to see this. So
I care if you buy the DVD. I still want you to see it. No, it's an amazing film. But it took 10 years to make. What was it like, just the journey?
10 years was because I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I'll take the blame. I'll take absolutely the blame for that. I had never done a documentary. I would say even today I still don't know how to do a documentary, but I know certain things I do differently. We would go around, all the interviews were conversational. All the interviews were just an enjoyable 45 minutes to 2 hours sitting with someone talking about Star Trek and my father and the future and their fandom for it or whatever appreciation they had. And that was a fantastic conversation. However, trying to thread all these interviews together when they don't have like a focused 5 questions or something is really, really difficult. So if you do a documentary, I would say think of your 5 or 10 questions, definitely get those out of the way and then have a conversation.
It makes you feel any better. I don't know anyone who starts a documentary where it doesn't take a lot longer than they expect. Documentaries tend to be a very evolving process. It's very different than a regular movie. With a regular movie, it's like you want to have every word down of that script, and hopefully every word ends up in the movie. You know, they evolve slightly, but documentaries evolve a tremendous amount. So most documentaries take 3 or 4 years, even if the person thinks they're going to take 6 months. So.
Love it. Does anybody have any questions about anything we've discussed today?
Or anything else.
Or anything else.
This guy's going to be leaving us soon.
Yeah.
So, let's give him the
Start talking.
Actually, my question is for Greg. Doing the white 360-degree camera, did you find it difficult for sound? Like, if you're just in the sound, like, you've got all this going on around you, and you're trying to sit in the middle and listen to it. So did you have a lot of issues with overlapping sound?
No, I mean, we shot on the soundstage. We had to keep the crew actually in separate rooms so that there would be no ambient sound. But we actually encouraged overlapping sound. Everyone was loud so that they had separate microphones on them.
Yeah.
The real challenge is in post because it's a new technology. Like the whole 360 thing, that viewing it is new, but also the sound is a huge part of it. And what we found is if you, like online, if you choose to look at Brecken, but you're still hearing the dialogue from the person who in theory would be 180 degrees from him, it gets very convoluted and confusing. So now we're having to write new programs and algorithms for the sound that kind of, as the camera moves, the sound spreads. So recording it was not an issue, but yeah, trying to get it in a way that it can be presented to you and make sense is a challenge we hadn't anticipated.
And I know he said it, this guy's crazy talented, so look up his name online and follow his blog. He does some amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Yes, young lady.
I was thinking along the same lines as when we were watching that with sound up, but in the 360 dome view, that would be a lot harder to figure out what sound
So,
instead of just trying to pick up, like maybe pick by more important segments for each.
Yeah, in the 360, which again we're sort of in testing on right now, and once again, no one's ever done this, so we are literally figuring this out, but we're doing a pretty good job. Yes, and what we're going to have to do is, as Greg mentioned, figure out a way where the sound is coming from the appropriate places, so that you, as an audience member, know to turn your head or to look in a certain direction to understand and follow the story and the characters as need be. It's definitely a challenge. It is something that, once again, no one's ever worked with that in that way before. So it's something that we are figuring out, but it is something that is achievable. We've recently kind of hit, I think, a grade where we know how we're going to do it now. We just have to execute against it.
That's why I like to think of it as the hologram technology, because when we watch holograms on the show, it's still very directional, you know. But I feel like this movie is kind of like the first time you would walk into like Times Square, and you just can't see everything, you can't take everything in. So that's part of the fun of it. It's also part of the challenge, and you know how we still make it entertaining, because it is a narrative film. So there are very specific things you want to see. Hopefully, it'll be good enough that people are encouraged to see it multiple times and try and seek things out.
You had a question over there?
Yeah, so in the 2D version, how did you then select it? You know, do you have more than one thing going on at a time that you're showing, or are you only showing like one?
No, the 2D version is, we say it now like casually, I don't know if this is a common term, but the traditional cut, where we filmed it. We did do multi-camera, but I go through and I select the angles that I want and then edit it together, and it's just a traditional narrative, but driving the story with a specific pace. And we're talking about possibly having like a comparative version where you can watch the narrative and the 360 at the same time. So if I'll use Brecken as the example. If I'm featuring Brecken in his dialogue, you may have the option to be able to scroll around and look at Mylin and what she's doing at that very moment, even though you can see it in the traditional cut.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Have we thought about any sort of story or general idea for Days Missing, of which take we would go or which angle, or would be a completely new and exciting adventure? JC? Oh, and thank you for letting me swim in your pool last summer, by the way. Yeah.
I was talking about you with Amit this morning, by the way.
There you go.
You're welcome. You know what? I would hate to, it's funny, on Why the Last Man, which had been kind of in hiatus for a couple of years, we just hired writers that had probably 60% or 70% of the graphic novel and 30 to 40% kind of outside elements. And I never would have thought going into it that we would have done that in a million years, and yet they were able to take what was there, expand upon it, bring in a lot of new stuff. I don't think depending on who we end up with, that they're going to do the, we'll have the answer then. You know, as, you know, until, it's such a hard thing because, you know, what's fascinating about movies is it's like, you know, you'll hear the studio put a movie in turnaround, and then the movie does 800 million, and that studio's like, oh, I wish I had done it. But they would have had different people in it, would have been different people marketing it, different people releasing it, a whole different kind of thing. So, yeah, I have no idea what the take will be right now. I think it's going to depend on, you know, who we're talking to and kind of what they're feeling within, you know, and us kind of trying to guide them in certain directions. But yeah, it's the toughest question.
I think
That's why I put it in front of you.
What's that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Until we get that great take from the right writer or director or just director, I don't think.
Greg just raised his hand, JC. I think we have time for one more question. Young lady.
I have a two-part question. There was a blog on Blaster a couple of months ago that talked about a rumored possible new Star Trek show, and so my question is there any truth to that rumor? And also, if there was going to be a new show, would it be go forward in the timeline of the Star Trek universe, or if it would be more of a J.J. Abrams reimagined?
Did anyone else read this?
Brian Singer. The question was about a potential Star Trek TV show.
Yeah, I'll tell you this,
Google.
we have no doubt that Star Trek will again return to the small screen. In what,
Thank you.
Well, how can it not, you know? That said, I know that obviously right now, the next movie's coming out next year or next summer in 2013.
Yeah.
And I know that they're focusing heavily on the films, of course, as far as right now the way that Star Trek's going to get out to the world. Where that leads to when it turns into a television show, whether it be, what's great about Star Trek is it's literally been completely separated sometimes, and other times being connected to what came before it. And what that'll turn into, therefore, in television, we couldn't tell you right now. But,
Nothing definite.
not that we know of.
Yeah.
There'll be one.
Well, I think that's all our time. If you have any questions whatsoever or want to know more about anything we're doing, you can go to Roddenberry.com, you can go to whiteroom02b3.com, you can go to daysmissing.com, you can go to benderspeak.com, you can go to treknation.com.
Who gets the last book?
Wait, who has
That gentleman who just raised his hand right there gets it. Good, so pass it on to that guy in the blue. Thank you guys so much. We had a blast.
Thank you.
So whoever has the days missing and the guy raised his hand right there, bring it to him. Oh, come to see me, my friend, with the gentle hand in the air and the frosted flakes. Awesome. So
That is absolutely the correct answer. That's awesome. On our website.
And it lights up, Kev.
No.
I think I have something else for the kitchen table to do. Huh? Eat that other kitchen table. We gotta eat somewhere else. Yeah. Serious.
Have to go anywhere. This is more of meeting or that if you pass out, I want to make sure you at least
all the shirts that we have are actually on that wall there.
I had to stick my camera way up at the top.
Up to 3XL.
Get a little sign that says, found, give me.
Oh my God, is that working great?
It sure does. This is our
Her name is Megan Laura. Megan does. That is the package. That is the package. Yeah, because what they are is they're on
Okay. I hear you guys haven't started to
Oh, it's actually
You're gonna let me know, right?